What's up everyone, Michael here with another topic video. Apparently, Bethesda will only be releasing review keys a day before a game launches from now on. Which, I believe they already started doing this. They did it with Doom, they did it with Skyrim Special Edition, which is actually the game in the background. And I kind of want to talk about why it's kind of a jerk move, but also kind of why I understand from a business aspect. Obviously, I'm not a fan of it. As somebody who does reviews and all that, I would like to be able to get keys way before the game launches so that I can actually get a review done. But obviously, we'll cover that. Also, as a bonus, game in the background is, as I said, Skyrim Special Edition. It's alright for it. I'm going to talk a little bit after the main topic about it a little bit, because I've been in the modding community for it for a while. I'm not a big modder or anything like that. Like, I do a lot of stuff, but I don't release everything public and yada yada, whatever. You don't care. But I'll talk about it for a little bit, because it's actually a fairly decent kind of edition, I guess. It's not like fantastic, amazing, or anything like that, but it's not bad. So I'll go ahead and talk about it a little bit later. Anyway, so on to the topic at hand. Bethesda has actually made an official kind of news post on their website that actually states, which this is the first time a publisher has actually been 100% honest about it, so I gotta give them at least credit for that, to where they actually stated that they won't be giving out review keys until a day before a game launches. Now, they're still doing preview keys, and so this means that there's still, like for Skyrim Special Edition, they had it so that streamers and YouTubers could do like 2 hours of content, like the first 2 hours of the game, but they were heavily kind of restricted on what they could say. And they're still sending out not review keys, but like preview editions to like press releases and stuff like that. So it's like, oh yeah, they can preview this game, so they can grab footage and things like that to talk positively and market the game. However, official review copies will not be sent out, and I think the NDAs will probably come along with that as well. I'm not really sure how all that side works when it comes to most AAA developers, but Bethesda's not the first one to do this. There's a lot of people that are kind of like panning Bethesda as being like, oh my god, why would Bethesda do this? Newsflash, like EA, Activision, all of them, they've been doing it for quite a while, and I feel like Bethesda is probably one of the last ones to do it, just because they don't release a lot of games, but they do release quite good games, so this is also one of the reasons why it's kind of upsetting. Now, to talk about the news article that they posted, or I guess like it's a blog post sort of thing, they kind of made two justifications in there for their actions, or for what they're going to do in the future, which is sending out, a day before only. They said two things. One, they mentioned Doom, to where they're like, oh, well, we did this for Doom. We didn't give out review keys until a day before it launched, and it ended up being a critical success. I just want to throw out there, those two things are completely unrelated, and in actuality, I'm personally somebody who didn't buy Doom right away because there were no reviews for it. And I played the multiplayer beta, which I was not happy with. I was very vocal in the video that I did for it a long time ago, to where I just panned it. I didn't feel like it was Doom, and I think pretty much almost everyone agreed with me pretty much too. Like, most people did not like it or didn't feel like it was Doom. Like, there were people that liked it but knew it wasn't Doom. And so, I held off on buying the game, and because of that, I actually waited until a sale, which I actually ended up picking up, and it's a fantastic game. The single player is absolutely incredible, and I recommend it to anybody who likes first-person shooters. But I don't feel like them holding off on sending out review keys actually helped them in any way. Now, with the prevalence of like first-day patches and stuff like that, it kind of makes sense when you get on to their second point. The second point they kind of make to kind of justify this is they want everyone to experience the game at the same time, which also makes the assumption that they want everyone to have the same experience. Now, this is kind of a stupid remark, and it's obviously a thing that they're just saying for marketing reasons, like, oh yeah, well, we got to say something and make it sound nice, but there is some understandable bits to it, and I'm not going to completely pan the idea, because realistically, how do I exit? This is the first time I'm actually playing Skyrim with a mouse and keyboard, and I have no idea how to exit a book. Escape? Yes, it's escape. Okay, sorry. The original Skyrim had some mouse issues, so I wasn't able to use mouse and keyboard in it. I had to use the gamepad all the time, and E and B only made it worse. But with this edition, I can actually use the mouse and keyboard and look around like this and give myself a seizure. Oh, Jesus, that hurt my shoulder. Anyways, back to what I was saying. There's actually some understandable points to that, to where with the prevalence of like day one patches and the kind of culture around online servers and activity and, day one DLC, unfortunately, that kind of makes sense on an aspect of there could be there's bats out here? What the hell? That's new. There's situations to where it could actually change the way that the game works. Or maybe there's some quality control things that are in there, like let's say there's a game-breaking bug, or they know that physics are wonky and they're going to fix it before the game launches. Now, realistically, they should have this stuff patched way before the launch. That's obviously a thing. But I understand it from, a developer standpoint to where, maybe stuff isn't done. Now, I don't think that's reason to actually, withhold review keys and stuff like that. I think it's still kind of pretty bad because reviewers understand, or at least the good reviewers understand, that when you get a copy before release, that it's going to be one that's not necessarily going to be 100% representative of the product. And in every review that I've had a review key in that I've had before a game launches, I'm like, hey, by the way, this is a review key. It's before the game's launched. That's a thing. Now, it doesn't happen because I'm not a large YouTuber. So that doesn't, I don't get review keys that often that are before release. Normally I get them after. But hey, it's something to consider when you're looking at that type of stuff. Now, let's go ahead and go on to another point that they kind of made with this is the fact that they think they can kind of replicate their success by doing this, which, you know what? Maybe, because there's two things that definitely work in the current games market. One is pre-order culture. People pre-order like crazy. Number one sellers are almost always new games that aren't even out yet, that we have no reviews, no clue how good it's going to be. Happens all the time. I remember No Man's Sky. Everyone's talked about No Man's Sky for years. It was like 2 years, and everyone would not shut up about it. And then it released, everyone pre-ordered it apparently, and it was not what they were expecting. It was not what they promised. And you know what? That's a price you pay for pre-ordering, and quite frankly, it should have never happened. Now, that game got overhyped, and everyone with that whole pre-order culture kind of screwed themselves over because they really didn't have to deliver on that game for anything. They could have released a text document and, charged $60 for it, and people would have bought it for some reason. And unfortunately, that's kind of something that other developers, or not other developers, but other publishers have seen, and they're like, hey, we could do that and make money off of it. And so that's kind of a route that a lot of, AAA developers have been doing, or AAA publishers. Sorry, it's not the developers, it's the publishers, to clarify. I don't think developers are actually a big fan of this. I'll talk about that in a minute. So, obviously, Bethesda seeing this is like, hey, you know what? Other guys are doing it. We're just going to be upfront about it. So, props to them for actually saying something, but it still makes them look like jerks because the way that they're presenting it tries to make them look so much like the good guys. They're like, oh, yeah, well, look at this guy who's got a review key. Yeah, well, he gets to play it before you, and it may not be the same experience. Doesn't that kind of suck? And that's kind of the feeling I get from it very, very much. It's like, I saw this thing, and I'm like, you know what? That kind of sucks. But, I don't want to talk too much about that. We already spent 5 minutes talking about that sort of thing. I kind of want to talk about the actual effects of it because that's what actually matters. A lot of people probably don't think about this as a negative thing. They're like, okay, cool. Reviewers, they can get the game at the same time and then get their review out. That's fine. All I want is just to have the game to play, right? The problem is that with the currently, especially with the current quality control of games in the AAA industry especially, we need these review keys to get things done. As somebody who does reviews and takes a long freaking time to do their reviews, I still haven't even finished my Disgaea review. It'll be out eventually. The thing is, it takes a lot of time to do a review properly. And, whatever your opinions are on my own reviews or other people's reviews, that's fine. You could think I don't do them properly, and that's cool. But regardless of that situation, it takes a long time to end up doing those reviews and getting those out. And even if we didn't spend as much time playing the games to get an official review out, it still takes time to do videos and stuff like that. And one day is not enough time. Imagine this, imagine you're at work and then you got to go home and you're a reviewer, right? And you get this review key a day before launch, right? I could have been at work all day for 8 hours, and then I'd have 2 hours to play the game and an hour to get the review done, and then I'd be up all night finishing the video. That's how that would work. That doesn't work for me. Now, if I did it full time, it would be a little bit easier, but that's still only 24 hours to actually get your review completely done, because in the review market, getting it out before people have to pay for the game is kind of important in a lot of aspects, because people aren't normally willing to wait. Now, if people were willing to wait, it wouldn't be that much of a deal, because people would just wait for the review and then it would be fine. They probably wouldn't need to buy it and everything like that. They just wait for the review to see if it's good and if it's a waste of their money or not, which would be fine. Now, for consumers, this means that not as many reviews are going to be out for the games. For, a lot of games, that's kind of the case already, which means that I just got a kill cam on a bunny. That was sad. I kind of feel regretful for killing that rabbit now. Anyways, so what kind of sucks is that consumers are going to have to buy games blindly without all these reviews and without all these resources. And the only type of content that they're going to have out is that preview content I mentioned earlier. Now, this preview content is going to be almost curated in a bad way to where Bethesda or whoever the AAA publisher is, or I guess even like second-rate publishers, just any publisher in general, and some shady developers, whatever, we're not going to talk about them, they're going to be able to control what that content is. For example, for the Skyrim Special Edition, they were able to send out keys to specific streamers and YouTubers to say, hey, you can do 2 hours of content on this game within this certain limited range. And with those types of documents, they're able to say, you can only say this, you can only do this, you can't do this, and they're able to curate what they do in that game. And like one of the aspects of that was we can't mod the game. And so they weren't able to like add modifications and stuff like that, which they don't have the creation kit out and everything like that. So that kind of made sense. So they didn't want people breaking the game with mods when it's not officially supported and yada yada. That makes sense. But in general, like let's say it was a new Battlefield game or a new Call of Duty game. It's like, oh, well, you can't use these weapons or you can't play on these maps. You have to play on this specific map, or you have to play this specific campaign mission, you know, that sort of thing, to where maybe that's the best campaign mission in the game, or maybe that's the most entertaining one to watch. And well, most YouTubers aren't going to mind too much about that because their content is normally about entertainment. That's still a marketing tool to where they're able to control what the consumer ends up seeing. And that can heavily influence what people think of purchasing. You see a game, you see a YouTuber play it, let's say it's one of your favorite personalities, and he's a great personality and everything like that, and he sounds super positive, he's super stoked to play this game. You're going to look at it and be like, I could play that. That looks fun. I like that turret section. It was really cool. There was aliens and they exploded. And then you end up picking up the game. You find out that's only 5 minutes of the entire, 20-minute game. And then you realize you don't like the rest of the game. And you know what would have told you that? A review. You know what doesn't exist? A review. You have to wait until, a week afterwards, and then all of a sudden the reviews come out and you find out the game isn't very good. That is something that can happen. Now, the opposite can also happen. You can end up trying to judge a game based off of all the other information around it. So, like Doom. Doom came out, it was actually very, very successful. So it's not just a whole Doom saying, but it is something to be very, very weary about. And I personally do not purchase games until there is some sort of honest previewing of it available. So, for example, I recently picked up the Dragon Quest Heroes, which is actually pretty good, by the way. If you were looking for an interesting console port, it's obviously a console port, but I waited a long time to pick up that one, and I knew it wasn't worth $60 because I didn't pick it up right away, even though I really wanted to. I looked at reviews and I looked at, people playing it and stuff like that. I'm like, you know what? That looks like an interesting experience and I'll pick it up for $40, but maybe not $60. So I waited until it dropped to $40 and bought it. That's how it works. Now, games like Doom, I would have saw Doom and been like, oh God, I need that right away. And I would have bought that for $60 because I'm a shill. That would have been fine. So it's not always a negative case. However, it does create a scenario to where it is much more of a oops, I accidentally bought instead of sold. Whoops, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm not saving this save anyways. I'm going back to my old Skyrim. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it does create a scenario to where it is more of a risk, and I feel like that risk is only increasing inside of the market, especially with the prevalence of things like DLC. Like, this is another thing about waiting, and this has nothing to do with what Bethesda said, but, waiting on games is very important because of, the DLC. Like, another reason of waiting on Dragon Quest Heroes is, are they going to release, a bunch of mission DLC? Should I wait for a Game of the Year edition? That sort of thing. Like Witcher 3, I recently picked it up, and I waited for a Game of the Year edition because I knew they were going to do DLC, and they ended up releasing a Game of the Year edition, and I picked it up, and it was $40. It was also cheaper and everything like that, and I was like, you know what, that's cool, and love that game, by the way. So it's not always a bad thing, is what I'm saying, but a lot of times it's just very risky. I don't like the idea of people having to go in and just buy a game blindly. I feel like the resources need to be there, and Bethesda isn't helping. And although they're trying to make themselves sound like good guys by doing all this, they're like, yeah, well, everyone gets to experience it at the same time, and there's not going to be any misinformation from non-day one patches, which I saw on their Twitter post, which I think is deleted now. I don't remember where it was. It was somebody linked to Bethesda. I've been looking at all this Bethesda stuff because I've been trying to find out information about the modding for SE. So yeah, don't think I was actually like digging for information or anything on this topic. I really wasn't, but it just kind of happened to be there. I'm like, all right, well, that's kind of sucky. But that is another thing that other publishers have said as well. So yeah, it just kind of sucks, and I kind of hate that notion. I think that reviewers need to have their keys to do it, to like finish a review properly and be able to give non-misinformation, because when you're releasing these keys so late, people are going to rush through their reviews and try to get them out early, you know, try and get out day one, you know, because they need those views. Like, let's say for me, if I got a review out day one of a game being released, that's huge. That's going to spike my channel. That is big. I am not a very large YouTuber, and that would blow my view count out of the water if I got a AAA game and I was the first one with a review. It goes in the top of search results. That's going to be huge for me. Doesn't matter how good the review is, as long as I had it out first, right? Now, obviously, that goes into the whole content quality to where, you know, high quality content ends up getting rewarded by people staying to view the content and yada, yada, yada. So it's not necessarily the best scenario, but in the long run, most of these larger companies don't care, which means that a lot of these reviews are going to end up being rushed, and that's going to cause misinformation, which is going to harm the consumer as well, because people, like, let's say 2 weeks down the line, end up looking at this review to consider buying a game that just went on sale, because yes, games go on sale that quick apparently. Then they'll get misinformation, like, let's say, oh, they've completely missed this entire mechanic, which is one reason why I actually started doing reviews in the first place, is I saw these reviews that just like completely missed information that was very vital, or they just weren't clear on things and yada, yada, yada. That's because they have to rush through these reviews to get them out on time to actually make them profitable. You know, so obviously Bethesda's not helping in this, and they're not the only ones. I know I'm attacking Bethesda specifically here, but I feel like they're one of the last ones doing it, and at least they're 100% honest with it, and they said they're doing it. But EA, Activision, yada yada, Square Enix has been doing it as well. Just a lot of the AAA publishers have been doing it, and it's a sucky practice, and I hate it. But that's pretty much where I want to leave on it. I probably sound like I'm depressed about it, and I kind of am. And to me, personally, it doesn't affect me too much because of my whole model. I'm not a big YouTuber and everything like that. I don't really get review keys to begin with, so I have to buy most of my games. And yeah, I just kind of do reviews whenever I can, which is good. I hope that people enjoy my reviews for that. But let's talk about Skyrim Special Edition for a little bit. That's the end of the initial topic. I think that's really all I have to say on it. I could go on for days about all the like advanced stuff, but I feel like that's kind of topics for other videos that I'll cover later. So anyway, Skyrim Special Edition. It is basically Skyrim with slightly better graphics, and it runs amazing on my computer. So the original Skyrim had a bunch of problems that I could not live with. So one of the major problems was I couldn't use the mouse and keyboard because the mouse delay was like 3 seconds on vanilla Skyrim. I'm talking about no mods, by the way. So I'll get into modding in a little bit. The actual base game, though, it runs amazing on my computer. Now, some people that don't have, you know, newer hardware, like mid to high range hardware, have been having problems with it, which is most likely due to the fact that it runs on a 64-bit executable now, which means that on hardware that's capable of higher, you know, memory and stuff like that, it's performing way better. And also the fact that it's running on DirectX 11. Now, if you don't have a DirectX 11 graphics card, you're going to be running into performance issues like crazy. And that's just a thing that's going to happen because, quite frankly, if you don't have a card that supports it, how are you supposed to run it? That's just something that's going to happen. Now, I haven't seen any reports of the game just not working outright. There's been a few people who have had crashes, but then they ended up checking like their files, like verifying their files, and it ended up being fine. So there seems to be some download issues. I know some people didn't have the game preloading properly and yada yada. So that is something to be aware of. And it seems like low-end hardware is having trouble running this game, whereas the original Skyrim, maybe not so much, which I think mostly, once again, is due to the DirectX 11 switch and probably the fact that they added new lighting, and it is heavier than the original Skyrim. The original Skyrim barely touches my system. This one still barely touches my system. I'm running on a GTX 1070 and a 6700K like i7. So yeah, I'm kind of blowing this game out of the water with anything. I mean, it is a 5-year-old game. Basically, what they did for this Skyrim Special Edition, as what it looks like, is they updated it to the Fallout engine, basically, the updated Creation Kit engine, which means that the audio was fixed most of the part, for the most part. Like a lot of the audio sync issues seem to be fixed from what I've played. I have 2 characters right now. One's a level like 6, and then this one is level 3, 4, level 5. Actually, I might have just gotten this one to level 6, so they might be at the same one. Nope, level 5. Okay, so I'm basically fighting the dragon on the other save, so that's the thing. What's other major changes? Oh yeah, they added basically the HD textures that were in the optional DLC pack or whatever that was free. Basically, they just put that into the game and optimized them. Now, there's a bunch of technical stuff that's better that's going to make mods absolutely amazing if we end up cracking into the game enough to actually do it. I don't know how long that's going to take, though. Currently, the modding scene has no idea what's going on, so yeah. Also, lighting has been improved a lot. Now, the number one improvement that I noticed, I'm gonna level that up later. Sorry, I don't want you guys to just sit here and stare at a menu. Now, the main thing that I've noticed is the shadows look amazingly better. The textures are a little bit more clear too, because when I use ENB, they have to have use bloom and stuff like that. But I'm also not using any HD texture packs or anything like that. So the textures are a little bit blurrier than what I'm used to. I'm used to a heavily modded Skyrim, by the way. But the shadows and stuff like that, like just the overall scene, it has more color in it. The original Skyrim had kind of this weird blue sort of look to it, like it was like a bluish gray look on everything, no matter where you were. But this version of Skyrim, no matter what area you're in, always seems to have color in it, which is always really, really nice. And a lot of people seem to forget that. Now, it does seem a little bit yellowish in the day, a little bit too much for my flavor. Like the sun effects are maybe a little bit too kind of strong, like the god rays and things like that. They're very bright in areas to where I think they probably shouldn't be, but that's more of a stylistic choice. Overall, it looks much better than the original Skyrim. So if you're running a non-modded Skyrim, it's definitely the way to play. And if you're on PC and you had the Legendary Edition or Skyrim with all 3 DLCs, you actually got this for free, which is how I got it, because I bought that stuff way long ago, and it was on sale for like $4 for the entire Legendary Edition at one point. So like if you don't have that, then that's kind of lame. Also, they added like debris and stuff like that to different areas, so you'll notice there's a lot more plants in the area. The forests feel a lot more full and stuff like that, which means that there's a lot of mods that had to be played with on the original kind of Skyrim that probably aren't necessary to be put into this one, or maybe, you know, they could be toned down a bit to be kind of made better, I guess. Like there was certain floral overhauls that added more grass, like this much grass. You know, you would need a mod to actually get this much grass originally, but now we could actually just have mods that just modify the grass instead of adding more grass and yada yada. Now it's still kind of clumped up, as you can see here, but you know, so it's basically the same exact game. Now the thing with modding is the original Skyrim has 5+ years of modding onto it, which means that the tools and everything for the 32-bit version of Skyrim are pretty amazing, and ENB adds a hell of a lot of lighting effects that aren't in Skyrim to begin with. However, if modding actually gets kind of caught up a little bit, it's going to take a lot less time for one to actually catch up, because we already have the mods. A lot of mods are already compatible. They just have to run through the new creation kit. And some people have access to that. They have access to the beta. I applied for the beta. I haven't gotten any access to it, probably because I'm not like a huge modder or anything like that that released any super popular mods or anything like that. I've released a few and they've been alright received. But yeah, I'm not like somebody who does the unofficial patch or anything like that, so yeah, I don't have access to it. But you have to basically run mods through there, and for the most part, as long as it doesn't require SKSE, which is a script extender, it will pretty much work right off the bat, which is kind of nice, I think. There's a few issues with like textures and stuff like that. It seems like the old textures and stuff like that still work in the game. They just take a little bit more time to load, so your loading times end up increasing if you use them in your game, which means that basically all the texture replacers and stuff like that we have, they already are functional. You just drop them into the Skyrim install and they work perfectly fine, which is kind of cool. So I can end up using all my texture mods and things like that. The problem is like ENB doesn't work because it requires the EXE to kind of function properly. SKSE, which is the script extender, means that, you know, it doesn't work because it requires once again, the EXE, and it has to be basically almost completely rebuilt for 64-bit, which means that might take a while, but a lot of the mods, including most of the ones that I made, are not going to be functioning on the Special Edition, which means that the modding scene is pretty questionable right now. There's a lot of mods that are being uploaded that people say they're compatible, but they're actually not. But right now, basically, if it's a texture replacer or a very basic script mod, it probably works fine. The unofficial patch that fixes all the bugs in Skyrim, like, they didn't actually go through and do a bug fix on the game, which annoys the hell out of me. But the unofficial patch actually fixes everything pretty much, so that's already available for Special Edition, which is super awesome. I have that installed and stuff like that. And yeah, Sky UI, which is a very popular mod, doesn't work either. Now, if you're looking for it for consoles, basically, if you didn't play it before, sure, pick it up. But if you've played it before, there's no reason to play this version of the game because, quite frankly, it's the same game. I guess if you don't have your old console, like you don't have your 360 or your PS3, sure. Wait, I died? What the hell?
Must have run off.
I died. That was lame. Going back to my last autosave. Anyways, yeah, if you never got to a chance to play it or you don't have access to your old console and you play Skyrim, which Skyrim itself on default isn't actually a bad game. Everyone talks about, modding it to make it amazing and stuff like that. And while I agree that mods do make it, even amazingly better, like you can make Skyrim a completely survival crafting game as well. Like that's actually something that mods can do. I made my own roguelite mod, which turns Skyrim into a roguelite. So when you die, you actually just lose your items and you teleport to another place. And I had some other features that I didn't end up releasing because I never updated that mod. But, that's something that I built. And so modding adds a hell of a lot to Skyrim. I mean, you can add, slongs to horses if you really want to. So, yeah, the modding makes Skyrim almost infinite, and that's pretty incredible. And the graphics mods are one of the more apparent ones. But this is a decent kind of catch, and now there's also modding on consoles, which is super limited. Don't buy it on console if you're looking for modding. If you're looking for modding, buy it on PC. That's the way to go. But yeah, that's kind of my impressions of it. I think the Skyrim itself is an amazing game. I know a lot of people like to rag on it for its downgraded RPG elements and stuff like that, and while I agree that the downgraded RPG elements kind of suck, at the same time, I don't think the game's bad. I do prefer Oblivion's RPG elements, but it's still a great game, and it still holds up pretty well, especially with the updated graphics now. It still looks like it's an outdated game, but it has the lighting effects of an updated game, which makes it quite interesting. Anyways, that has been me with this kind of Bethesda being jerks topic, and then Bethesda not being jerks and releasing a competent product. Yeah, this actually performs quite well, which didn't work in the original Skyrim. I had tons of freaking performance problems in the original Skyrim, and still do, even after all the patches and fixes and community stuff. It still just randomly crashes, and I haven't had any crashes on this version so far, which is nice. And I'm gonna steal this horse because I want a horse. But yeah, anyways, this has been me with all these topics, and hopefully Bethesda and other publishers sooner or later kind of retract their whole day before, or even better, people stop pre-ordering games and they stop buying games before there's reviews and information out. Wait until there's some solid content. Wait until, somebody knows what's going on with the game so you know whether you actually want to buy it or not, because people complain all the time that games are expensive, but games are expensive because people buy games that they don't necessarily want. And if you only bought good games, then only good games would exist because publishers would put in the time to make a good game. Or there would be a few failed titles. That happens. Sometimes, developers put out a game that's not necessarily great. That happens sometimes. But overall, once again, that's a whole nother topic I can go on for days. Overall, thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure to leave your guys' comments in the comments below. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. I am so terrible at doing outros. Make sure to leave your comments below on what you think. Also, Skyrim Special Edition. Would you guys like to see a modding series? Anybody who's still watching this video, I'm considering doing a modding series on Special Edition once things start getting updated, because I'm a person who's actually modded the game quite a bit, the original Skyrim at least. And I actually know quite a bit about Creation Kit, and I'm finally confident in all of it, and so I could probably do a tutorial series on doing it's for a special edition and stuff like that once they release the new Creation Kit and everything like that. I think that might be interesting, and covering some mods and stuff like that. Obviously, I want to hear what you guys think about having reviews. Do you guys check reviews before you buy games? I know that I do reviews on my channel, and that's where most of my views come from. So I assume people that are watching my channel probably do check out reviews, but I don't know. Maybe they just watch it because they got bored. I don't know how you guys work. I'm not a mind reader. But yeah, overall, I think it's kind of a sucky move, but maybe other people don't think that. Maybe other people are like, I don't really care. And you know what? That's fine, because not everyone needs to check reviews. Just be careful when you're buying games. Make sure it's, somewhat of a flag. Be like, You know, if they're not letting people review their game, then maybe the game's not good, you know, that sort of thing. And don't give in to whole Bethesda's, oh, well, Doom was good, so that means that we're not trying to hide anything, because, quite frankly, 2 days before Doom launched, it could have been an absolute wreck, and they just might have, you know, pulled in overtime to fix a bug that broke the entire game. You never know what happened. Anyways, once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. I need to fix this field of view. FOV 160. Perfect.